4 flashes every 30 seconds. That's the signal sent out by Dunnet Head Lighthouse to mariners as they approach or leave the western end of the Pentland Firth, warning them of the treacherous cliffs of Dunnet Head. This was one of many lighthouses around the Scottish coast designed by engineer Robert Stevenson and built in 1831. To construct and service the lighthouse, a slipway was built in nearby Brough Bay. At that time, fishing boats used the bay as a sheltered haven to land their catch and secure their boats from the storms by dragging them up the beach to nousts in the coastal slope. This new facility was of great benefit to the local fishermen, giving them a more secure launching and landing point for their boats. At that time, the harbour also supported a salmon station. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, Brough was a small crofting and fishing village, with the residents being tenants of the Trail estate, which also encompassed the villages of Barrock and Scarfskerry. Many residents had travelled the world in the navy, while others were shopkeepers, masons and joiners, etc. One of the privileges they had was the right to cut peats on the moss of Brough and Dunnet Head, and this was a regular spring activity for most families. With the start of World War II, Dunnet Head became an important strategic location for military communications and guidance systems for aircraft travelling across the North Sea to targets in Germany. Large camps were established with tall transmission and receiving masts. After the war, removable items were taken away or sold, and the camps were abandoned. All that is left now are remains of foundations and the brick structures that protected communications equipment. In March 1976, a severe storm ripped the heart out of the slipway, tossing the large sandstone blocks around like pebbles. Repairs were coordinated by the then Pier Committee, and the pier was back in commission for the next fishing season. Once a busy fishing harbour, sadly the last full-time fisherman sailing from Brough, George Shearer, retired from the sea in the late 1990s in his mid-70s. The old ways of life aren't entirely lost in Brough, as some traditions continue. Music as entertainment in the crofts, harvesting using the traditional binder, then arranging their corn sheaves in stooks to dry. A few households still cut peat from Dunnet Head and build their stacks for the coming year. But horses and Highland cows have now replaced the crofter's sheep and the milk cow. In 2007, the slipway was in a very poor condition. After years of patching, the concrete was crumbling, the stonework needed pointing, and there was some undermining at the end of the slipway. If left in this state, a big storm could easily bring disaster again. Conservation work for the slipway and other structures around the harbour was going to cost around £46,000, a considerable sum for the association to raise, though with great effort they raised it. Work started at the end of 2010 and was celebrated by drinking a toast with water from the well by the Long Loch, as volunteer Jenny Broughton made a start on conserving the well. A team of volunteers also made a new shortcut path to the harbour, making access easier for walkers from the road. A and W Sinclair from John O'Groats were the main contractors. They started work on the slipway in March 2011 by removing stonework at the toe of the slip to put in solid concrete foundations. Old surface concrete along the length was replaced, the whole slipway was repointed, and new steel bands were put in place to hold the whole structure together. The crumbling wall by the salmon bothy was rebuilt to secure the road above. This created a new social area where a bench was placed for visitors to enjoy the bay. Conservation work was also carried out on the loading platform, which was a staging point for taking supplies to the lighthouse by horse and cart. The final touch was pointing with traditional lime mortar. Adding an interpretive panel, then putting the repaired winch in its traditional location where it was used to haul boats up the beach and slipway safe from the sea, gives a focal point for visitors to learn about the traditions and the history of the harbour. As part of the project, there was an exhibition, Brough, Then and Now, at Castletown Heritage Centre to celebrate the history of Brough, the harbour and its people. Photographs and stories had been gathered as part of a history archive, and these give a picture of Brough over the past 100 years. With work on the harbour structures finally finished, it was time to celebrate, and what better way to do it than with a harbour day. A barbecue, burgers and sausages, a glass of wine, even freshly caught crab, all to feed the appetite. Music with a little dancing added to the festivities. Boat trips around the cliffs of Dunnet Head that are nesting grounds for the many seabirds that come to breed. The northernmost point is covered in nests, far more than the rest of the head put together. With the RSPB on hand to identify the many different species of birds that can be seen on the cliffs of Dunnet Head and in Brough Bay at various times of the year, it was a day to remember. Brough Harbour is a welcoming place for visitors and continues to be used primarily for recreational purposes. Catching fish for the pot in the rich fishing grounds of the Pentland Firth, or if you are lucky, catch a crab or lobster. A perfect place to launch a canoe and explore the shoreline. However, it is the rugged wildness and the wildlife that brings most visitors to the bay. The shoreline is teeming with land and seabirds. There is also a chance of seeing the colony of grey and common seals that lays on the rocks and the slipway most of the year. A new woodland walk opened in the village this year. Heathfield, as the woodland is called, was donated by Betty and Bernard Heath to Dunnet Forest Trust, who recently made new pathways through the woodland by the pond and installed a new picnic bench. At the other end of the village, Julian and Rosie Smith opened their new bird hide by St John's Pool, which is very busy during the nesting season, as the birds are protected from most of their predators. And Dunnet Head, even with its scars of human activity, is a place of natural beauty with an abundance of plant and wildlife on the wet, peaty habitat of the hill. The loch still supports some leisure activities, be it sailing the old yachts or more recently fishing in the loch stocked with trout by Dunnet Head Fishing Club. And at the northernmost tip of the head, though now unmanned since it was automated on 31st March 1989, the lighthouse continues to send out its signal of 4 flashes every 30 seconds.